like on the 30, the clinging fire, the gate of feelings, what I really resonate with is, yes, inside of me, there is this, because my motivation is hope, right? So there's this great hope that I will fulfill my destiny. But like I said yesterday on the call, when we were in Portals of Deconditioning, and I said, you know, my goal is to live my highest vibration in every moment. And that really, for me, is my destiny.
I feel it.
You know, so I recognize that that's different. You know, it was like the example I gave about my friend who does her vision board in January, and it's, you know, like it's go to this place. And so there's a picture of that place, and, you know, it's how many books she wants to write. And so, you know, it's all these really things. And then I'll have one image, and it's the image that I have found that captures what my highest vibration in every moment is. And that's not to say that I'm a shining star every moment. No, life is filled with ups and downs. And if I'm in a down moment, the highest expression of that for me is to not beat myself up, to not make that I need rest or that I don't feel well wrong, and to just surrender in that moment.
I feel that so deeply with you. You really touch my heart every time, because you're so sincere with your emotions. And, you know that I have the 35, and then seeing you, and then this other channel, and they both say the word desire. And I also have hope in my design. And you just allow it, like you said, you surrender to that emotion. While I have the 47 as well, you know, oppression. I usually just push it away because I just, yeah, I also, like you, want to be in my highest vibrations. And I'm sort of thinking that I don't allow that because I have the judgment that the emotion, showing emotions and deep feelings and the lows that you have, that it's not the highest vibration, but maybe the emotion, the highest vibration of the emotion is just to show it and just to tear up and to express all the love that we feel, right? Because it's all out of love. I feel that so deep with you.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm grabbing for tissue and I don't have any because
I have one for you.
Thank you. So, you know, my experience with the 35 has been so incredible. And when I was younger and in my marriage, there were times where I would be eating, I'm Cajun. I'm from South Louisiana, and I'm a really good cook. I mean, I learned to cook at the hem of my grandmother's skirts, at the, you know, my mother's apron, and I can just cook really good food just from, you know, whatever. So we always cooked, you know, like we ate as a family, and I made dinner every night pretty much, you know. And there were times where we would be eating dinner, and I'd eat dinner, and then I would want something else. And I would say to Trey, I feel like there's no reason for me to be this hungry. Like, logically, I had my dinner, or, you know, I shouldn't want seconds, but I am so hungry, and I don't know where this hunger comes from. And you can't imagine how life-changing it was for me to read the 35 and to understand that first time when I read that. And Richard talks about it's the portal to the collective consciousness of hunger. And I stopped reading, and I ran and told Trey, and I was like, this is why. This is why. And that has changed me so much, because I can, you know, if I feel that, I go, oh, all right, I'm now connected. This isn't my hunger. And I'm experiencing the collective consciousness of hunger. And a lot of times I can just that awareness makes it manageable, if you will, you know, so I can, the highest expression in that moment would be to go, oh, I'm connected to the collective consciousness of hunger. This isn't my hunger. And just sit and feel, well, what does it feel like to be hungry for the world? And wow, what are all these people hungry for? And, you know, and then that just makes it dissipate for me. But then there are other times where it doesn't. And so it's so interesting that, this week I had this experience, and I haven't had one of these in a really, really long time, like a really long time, because once I got the 35 and the connection, that portal, I've been able to be with that at a really high vibration, which is, to me, to not overeat or eat for the collective, even though Richard says sometimes you're going to go there. Yeah. And just allow it. Don't make yourself wrong. Just receive yourself. And so I've done that. But so that's really helped me pivot, right? And then, so this week, one night, Trey and I were watching Downton Abbey, and I just got really, really hungry. And I said, I'm going to make myself a half a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is not something I don't really eat. I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat sandwiches. You know, it's not like something I eat a lot of, you know. So he goes, oh, that sounds good. Make me one too. So I made him one. Well, I ended up eating 3. And it was so good in the moment I was eating it. And when I finished the 3rd one, I was so happy. Like, I really felt like, oh, wow. But then I paid for it all night. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, okay, what is this about? You know, I haven't done this, you know, in so long. And I really, really felt into it. And I was contemplating it, you know, instead of making myself wrong and feeling bad about it, I was like, okay, this is teaching me something. What is it? And I just really started, you know, contemplating it. And I was thinking, what clue does the peanut butter give me? And then I went right back to infancy, and I have this thing with textures of food. Like, I don't eat soft food, so I don't eat mashed potatoes. But you too, we're rarities, right? But like, I don't like soft food. And so you know, my family, my mom, my grandmother, they would try to force cereal into my mouth, and they, you know, they could have 4 people sitting on me as a baby, and I would not let that cereal in my mouth. So they figured out that I would eat peanut butter. So they would feed me peanut butter instead of cereal. And so I was like, oh, okay, so what's the pattern that relates to when I was a child? What was, you know, and what was triggered in my nervous system that took me back to when I was an infant and I'm being fed peanut butter. And then I had this really amazing friend who does this work with nervous system, and you know, getting you out of nervous system loops. And so I messaged her and I said, hey, I think I'm in a nervous system loop that has to do with eating food, peanut butter, and potentially grief. Because I had also texted my acupuncturist of 20-something years, who's one of my dear friends, and I told her what was going on and what I was contemplating. She goes, I get grief. So I added in grief. So I did a session yesterday with my dear friend Ameshe to work on my nervous system. And what we uncovered is that as a baby, when you think about the muscle development and muscular system of a baby, right? And people are, you know, your mom, whoever's taking care of you, reaches forward with food. So it's like coming at you, right? And their faces come into you, right? And so we worked with this whole feeling of them forcing me. And there are patterns of my mother forcing food in certain ways in my life, or forcing me to eat foods that I don't like, or, you know, there was a lot of forcing with food. And so we worked with my nervous system, and what we uncovered is that eating really is not about the food for me. really, as a child, what I did was I fused food and love, people. And so we really explored how really food for me is about the people I'm eating with and the relationship that I have with the people that I'm eating with in the moment. And how, if there's any kind of grief, or if I'm stuffing feelings or emotions that I'm feeling about me or them or our relationship, that's it. Because what happened as a child and what happens now, how my nervous system shuts down, is that when I'm in a nervous system shutdown, my thyroid, everything stops working, right? Because it all stops breathing, right?
Right.
So then whatever I'm eating isn't nourishing me because my body's not processing it. So then my body's starving, even though I ate, because it didn't receive the nutrients from the food. So it's, you know, like I had this big aha about how important it is who I'm eating with, what's our relationship, that's important, more important than the food. Right? I mean, so
Yeah.
think about that in terms of hunger.
I am in awe because I recognize your story in my childhood. I'm not going to go into it. I'm going to listen. So many things are going on in my time myself right now. I'm going like, wow, because I have the 35.4 as well. And for the people to know, you have it in your open throat, and it's your conscious personality earth. And I have it in my south node in a defined throat. But so when you first mentioned like the hunger of the world and picking that up and then sort of transforming it or translating it with the food and the nourishment that the world needs, right? I was like, wow, that is how the open throat works with the 35. And then the 4, you know, being of service for me feels that, yeah, you're transmuting the energy with yourself, with your body. It's going through you. And somehow then your body needs the nourishment to process it all. So I feel there's a lot more going on. And then when you just started sharing about the nervous system and the relationship when you being fed as a child, and then saying they wanted to let me eat stuff I didn't want, and I was like, oh my gosh, it happened to me like 5 times a week. You know, we had sprouts. I hate sprouts, and I had to eat them. And like other vegetables, I did not like. They really pushed it, and I was even, you know, almost throwing up, and I still had to eat it. So food for me, the same way, became this love and hate. I don't know if you relate to that as well. So food for me, like you just mentioned, it just plopped. I thought was, yeah, it's about who I eat with. And when I eat with my husband, I just enjoy the food. And since like a few months now, we cook together. Before that, I didn't cook. He cooked most of the time, but he said, I like to cook together with you. So it's a real interaction. And now I love the food. But when I was alone with my daughter for 8 years, I was a single mom, I just ate microwave food because I had to eat, but I did not like to eat the food. There's no relationship with the food and the nourishment for yourself. So yeah, I can go on and on, but I'm in awe, you know, about the similarities that we experienced.
And how many other people, you know, I feel so grateful to have this understanding, you know, about how the nervous system develops as we're children, and to hear her explain, you know, like she was really talking to me about the muscles, like the muscles that were developing. I was looking to see if I could find where I'd written it down about. Oh, here it is. Like she talked about, you know, how like think about a baby lifting arms up, you know, so its shoulders, its pecs, its muscles in the back. And at first she was saying it really, really fast. And it was like the emotions that were attached to the nervous system with these muscles that were related to eating as an infant were boundaries, feeling supported, self-esteem, love, sexuality, will, self-worth, making your mark in a group.
Wow. Wow.
I know, right?
I just hear all my wounds. I never thought of the nervous system that way, but I directly connect to it and to my past. Wow.
So just, you know, like reading Richard's book with the 35 and having that aha about the portal to the collective consciousness of hunger, how much that helped me. I feel like this is the information that's helping me make the next quantum leap. Because I do notice, like, if I'm here alone, I'm a 4-6 projector, emotional projector for people, and, you know, so you can understand my context. When I'm alone here and I'm eating lunch or whatever, I'll go up into the kitchen. I'm like, what do I want? And I'll just stand there and it's perfunctory, right? And so when she was saying to me, it's all about who you're eating with, you know, because of the, you know, as we were tracking my nervous system, it's the relationships. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And it was also interesting, is that, you know, over the course of my marriage, Trey and I used to have these really big parties, 50, 75, 100 people, and I would cook.
Wow.
A traditional Cajun meal like gumbo for all these people, or I would cook, you know, whatever, and I could serve, you know, I could have catered, you know, a big function like that, because I'm from a big family. Like when our family was all together on Sundays, we were 50 to 100 people, and, you know, we just, you know, I was with my grandmother, we just made it happen, right? And I noticed that, like, when I was cooking for all these people, totally loving cooking for all these people, but I couldn't taste the food. Like, I'd have Trey come and taste the gumbo. I'd say, hey, come taste the gumbo to see if the seasoning's right, you know, for this group of people. And then after I would serve the food, like, I was not really even hungry. I might have just a little bitty taste. And now I get it, because I was with all these people I loved, you know.
You poured all your love in the food, and that nourished you. You didn't need food.
I didn't need to eat. I was nourished.
Right. Wow.
Right. So it's just so fascinating. And, you know, where I am now in my life, my favorite part of the day is when Trey comes home, and my friend Elizabeth is living with us now. And the three of us will sit down to eat dinner, and we talk and tell our stories. You know, I always want to know what Trey's day was like. He owns a store in a small town on a main street on a harbor, and it's, you know, kind of really quaint. People go there, and every day's an adventure for him at his store. And Elizabeth works with him, and when they work together and they come home, and we laugh. And that for me is, I guess, what I'm, you know, like, I'm realizing that's what I'm eating.
Right.
It's the love.
You hear that, the love and the connection and the sharing of stories. I feel they're nourishing too, because you feel a part of the whole. You were not there, but they're taking you on this adventure. What they done that day, and I totally recognized it the same. When you ask someone a question during a meal, you really. Yeah, you tap into each other's lives, right? And it's like you're there. At least that's how it feels for me. It's like you're there. I'm seeing pictures in front of me when people tell their story, and I'm sort of walking next to them. And so I am with them during that day that they are sharing, right?
And simultaneously, what I need to work on is that, you know, my father is has Alzheimer's. He's in a veteran's home, and hospice has been called in. And so I'm in the grief process. And grief is one of the things that can trigger my nervous system into shutting down. Then I'm hungry because it's not feeling nourished from the love, right? Because, and by simply understanding that, it's such a fresh discovery for me. I haven't really been able to experiment. But the other thing is that if I don't feel appreciated by what I've, I've cooked my whole life. And I remember my grandmother retired when she was 60. She cooked her whole life, raised 5 children. And when she turned 60, she goes, I'm retired from cooking. It was so precious, and she just stopped. Like she really was. She was good, thank you. And I'm kind of there. And I've done it for 40 years. I'm good, thank you.
You're fulfilled with cooking. Yeah, you're feeling that you don't want to cook anymore. You just want to enjoy the meal with the people you love, right?
That's it. That's it. And so, when there are times where maybe Trey has something going on, or, I do what I feel is a gift, for the meal or whatever, I take responsibility for that. I'm giving this gift. If I don't feel appreciated, I can tell that my nervous system just shuts down, and I'm not feeling nourished by the relationship. And that triggers me. And it just happened this week. And it's my work. That's the internal adventure of the 35, right?
Yeah, it's definitely, we talk a lot about the outside, but I also feel like the 35 is the deep search of the why is the hunger? We've discussed that. Why do you feel certain hunger for a particular thing, for a particular experience? Why you want on a particular adventure, and when is it nourishing and when it's not. And now when we're talking about it, it feels like when you're doing it for the wrong reasons, I feel. When you're doing it to get the confirmation that you're lovable, then it's not going to nourish you, right? But because we are so hungry for that love, we keep doing things we don't even like. Maybe your grandmother said, I'm done, and you're saying, I'm done, because somehow maybe the love for cooking, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe started because people really appreciated you for doing it. And that's the way your hunger got stilled. You got nourished because you got the love from the people because you cooked. And maybe the experiment now is, do they still love you when you don't cook? I think they will, but
Trey, my partner, is a pure generator, which, I love me a generator. Projector, I love you generators, I love you manifestors. I really appreciate how you enhance my life, but he's so easy. He's like, I don't need you to cook for me, I can take care of myself.
It's from the inside, the hunger. It's not the other person that does it to you, it's from the inside, that somehow that voice still says you need to do this,
right?
And it's so deep. I feel the 35 is so deep. I shared it with you already before, that the 35, I feel some keys you go through very fast and they're very sort of simple, not to simplify anything, because when you have one, it can feel very big.
Yeah.
But the 35, it talks about life's experiment and experience.
Yeah.
And that's so rich and full, and it can express also in so many ways, from the inside to the outside and back, from the mental to the emotional to the body to, wow, what I'm seeing now is like this, yeah, maybe it is the flux of the earth that I'm seeing, all this movement and sometimes I don't find the words to express what I'm seeing here. Yeah. There's so much to say about the 35, so I'm very grateful that you can bring it very precise what it feels like for you. And that you had this epiphany this week of how it is even related to the nervous system. I never thought about that, but when you mentioned it again, I'm like, okay, I had very much a tightness in my body where my whole body cramped up. I even had like these big, when you don't detox, you get these clumps in your body that don't go away. I don't have the English word for it. And it was in my burnout. I was totally, cramped up. And why? Because I had so many emotional experiences, and I did not process them for years and years and years, ever since I was 25, I believe, maybe earlier. Were you always able to express that emotions, or do you also relate that the tightness has been present in your life a lot, and that you're now relating to the nervous system and
It's a wave, when I was a child, my home was very volatile. And I like to describe it as I learned to become the wallpaper. Because if I, just became the wallpaper, it was a much safer place in my house. So I learned, in terms of human design, or, I learned to stop the emotional wave, or bring that emotional wave in, and then think about, I'm an emotional being, and I'm also a projector. So penetrating and wave, and I learned as a child to not project that into the field, because I learned that's dangerous. That's going to hurt you. That's what my household taught me. And simultaneously, that didn't shut me down, in that it didn't freeze me from expressing my feelings or emotions. I just learned who it was safe to share with.
So there were people you could share it with, so it wasn't blocked.
Yeah. I learned to discern over time, I would say by the time I experienced a big shift for me in my late 20s to 30s, because the friendships that I was creating in my late 20s, early 30s, are people who are still in my life and who truly love me and see me for the truth of who I am. And maybe before that, I was making my friendships were people who received from me, but weren't really available to me, if that makes sense. And so a lot shifted for me in that time frame. And maybe it was because I was finally had made a choice. So when I was a girl, I started school early, born in December. So I was the youngest one in my class, because there were only a few people in my class who were born after me, just a few. So I was one of the youngest ones in my grade, right? So I graduated high school. I had really just turned 17,
Amen.
So, right? I was, So when I started college, you know, and I'm doing my college applications, my mom and dad saw that I had put down literature as my major, and they're like, "You're not going to school to be a lit major. Pick something else." So I asked my friends, I was like, "What are you going? What is your major?" And they were all accounting majors. So I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I'll do accounting, because if I can't do what I love, at least I'll be with the people I love, right? I'll be with my friends." So then you know, when I was a junior, I met Trey. We got married 5 months after we met. And he was like, "What are you doing? You hate this stuff. Why are you doing this? It's nonsense," you know? So I was like, "Really, you think so?" He goes, "You should do what you love. Don't do this." So I dropped out. And later I realized that, oh my God, because I could see the writing on the wall. I was like, gosh, if anything ever happens to Trey, I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids. I got to go back to school. So I went back to school, and I came home. I remember the day I came home, and he goes, "Well, what happened?" And I said, "Well, if I finish in accounting, I can be done in a year." And he was like, he was like, "That's ridiculous." He goes, "No, go back, change that to what you want." He goes, "I want you to really think about what you really want." And I said, "Oh, I don't have to think about it. I know what I want. I want to study literature."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Go change it tomorrow." So I went and I changed it, and I became a lit major.
Wow. Wow.
And then,
thank him for that.
right?
Right. Yeah. That he just, in that moment, and so young already, said, "Do what you love.
Do what you love." Yeah. So then we moved really quickly after that to Houston, and I was a lit major there. And that was the time, you know, so I was studying what I absolutely loved. And part of why I loved literature was that my parents were really big readers. They always had books in the house. And as a girl, I could read any book that was on the bookshelf. It did not matter. If it was on the bookshelf, it was fair game.
You were feeding yourself with the literature.
Which is also an adventure.
Right. Because every book has a story. It's the adventure that you're reading. I love it. Wow. The writing is on the wall, literally, like in the book. And then, wow.
So a lot of my adventure through the 35 has been through literature. And then when I'm studying literature, now I'm in my late 20s, and I'm really in, you know, the lit program, and I'm in those upper level classes, and I'm getting a master's degree in literature. That's where I made these lasting friendships. These were my people, and they recognized me, and I recognized them. And my life is filled with friends that I made from that time in my life.
Wow. So by making that choice to do what you love, it brought you in the right environment to be nourished with the people you love, and that they love you for who you are.
Right.
Wow, that's a big one.
And aligned me with my profile, because communication is a big thing, which, you know, brings us kind of around because you were asking me about my emotions, and was I able to, you know, and I was, you know, like, I actually taught people how to write and communicate. That was my career. That was my career. And, you know, I was thinking about, you sent me some reflections that you had, and I was so moved by how, you know, my life's work is Gene Key 5, which is all about repetition. And the 35 is about do it once and you don't need to do it again. That's a tightrope, right? So I ended up in the most perfect career for me as a 4/6 projector, as a 535, because I taught at the college for 25 years. And so let's think about the repetition. So, you know, at the beginning of my career, back in the day, you taught a 16-week semester. So during the course of a year, I had 16 weeks, a break, 8 weeks, a longer break, 16 weeks, a break.
There's your rhythm. Wow, there's your pattern. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so then there was the repeating pattern. And then what I learned in the course of my career is to allow people to write about the things that they were passionate about. So I wasn't teaching the same thing over and over again. I was teaching the same skills in this pattern, so repetitive pattern. But what I was reading or receiving from them, because I had this awareness to invite them to write about what they loved or what they were interested in. So I had all these students who were doing different things.
And you were
so it was a repetitive process that was constantly renewing.
I love it. Wow. So,
right?
Yeah, I totally see that. And also because the 35 also speaks about every experience is not the same as the first experience. So sort of the repetition in that, I also feel the repetition is just the experience, but every experience being different. And you explaining this right now by, okay, I had with the fifth, I had the pattern, the cycle, the rhythm, but because every student each semester was different, they wrote different stories, it was like a whole new experience. So I see this, you know, these spirals going, the 35 and the 5 working together that way.
Yeah, and I was so grateful for your reflections because I really hadn't, for some reason, I hadn't put that together. And as I was reflecting on your notes, I was like, wow, my life could have gone to hell in a handbasket really quickly. Really quickly. You know, I'm just so grateful that, you know, my partner lifted me up and encouraged me to pursue what I loved and that I knew what I loved. And I'm grateful for my parents for being the readers that they were.
Right. They brought you the inspiration of the reading and the stories in it. And yeah, for me, it feels like your life is totally aligned. I don't know why, but each time I even see you in the path and you sharing, and now this sharing, and you telling me about your childhood, your parents and the persons in your life, and then knowing your profile, I'm like, wow, you are living in your highest vibration. You are. So don't ever say that you're not, because, wow, you're such a gift.
And you were looking at, and we kind of started there, was you noticing this connection between the 35 and I have the gate of the 3041. And it's so interesting because, you know, another thing I was thinking about was the adventure of we moved, and I was counting it last night, and I think I've moved 27 times in my adult life.
From different places, different houses, different states, or close?
All of it.
All of it. You tried everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason I am where I am right now, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, is because I was in Arizona, and the temperatures were just, it was really just killing me. I could feel it, you know. And I was trying out Hawaii, and I was going back and forth between Hawaii and Arizona, Tucson. And then I got an apartment. I was living with a friend, so I could go back and forth. And then finally I got an apartment for myself in Tucson. And one day I was standing at the counter and I was looking out at the ocean, and I was in this trance-like state, and I heard the voice of God. This happens to me sometimes. It was just like the voice all around me, and it said, "You will not be here by the end of the year." And it kind of like pulled me out of the trance a bit. Maybe I came out about halfway, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, and then I went to my inquiry, and I was like, Hawaii? Earth? Where will I not be?
Yeah.
I was just like,
and what happened? You've got me in your adventure now, so it's only.
it is the most fabulous adventure. So, of course, when I went to my, when I popped out, it just all stopped. So then I was like, okay, I just have to be patient. It'll come.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So then I had to go back to Tucson for my job, and I'm in Tucson, and this German friend of mine called me, a German friend client, and she's mostly a client, and she called me and we didn't have an appointment, and I see her name, but I'm like, oh, I wonder what she's calling about. So I answer the phone, and she's calling to tell me this adventure she had with this astrocartographer. And I'm listening to her and I'm like, oh, thank you, universe. I need astrocartography to know how to navigate this. So, I just had to be patient. It would come to me. So I listened to her story and I was like, thank you for, being as far to share your story with me. And who's this person, So I immediately hang up the phone. I call this man. I set up an appointment for astrocartography, which I had done kind of research on my own, and Hawaii was an okay place, but I didn't really understand the fullness of astrocartography when I was doing my own personal experimentation with it. So I make this appointment, and the man says to me, your Jupiter line, like where I am in the Pacific Northwest, my Jupiter line literally runs up the middle of Vancouver Island. And then I have like my moon, my Mercury, my Venus, my Chiron, and I think there's one other one. I haven't looked at it in a while. But I mean, it's this amazing geometry from Vancouver Island all the way down to San Francisco. And he goes, if I were going to roll the dice, I would go up here somewhere. And I was like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Wow. So then I go back to Hawaii, and I had signed up for Richard's first call where he went and he talked about the Delta, and he kind of presented the Delta. There was a, call. So I'm on this call, and he said, tell us where you're from, your name and where you're from in the chat. So I opened the chat, and I put in, Simone. I was in Honolulu at the time, and I wrote Honolulu, and I'm watching the scroll, and I see Alea Ashland. And I was like, did Alea move from Kauai to Ashland? So Alea is the amazing being who has done acupresence, who's brought in acupresence. And I had taken her training in Kauai. So I pick up my phone and I text her and I go, Alea, did you move to Ashland? And she goes, are you on the Delta call? And I'm like, yes, I am. And I had just decided that I was going to, sign up, and I was going to roll the dice and be in one of the random calls. I thought, oh, how fun will that be? So I paid, and I had just hit paid when she messages and says, are you going to do the Delta? And I was like, I just paid. And she goes, how did you sign up? And I was like, I signed up for the random group. I'm rolling the dice, and she's like, I may do an acupresence group. Would you like to be a part of it if I do? And I was like, sure, if there's room and you'd like me, I would love to join you. There's the invitation for the projector, right?
Yeah, I hear it.
So I end up with Bella.
Wow.
Jen Nelson, who's also an ambassador, Marilyn Winfield, who's an ambassador, Elka Finley on Cortez, and Joan. And I think that was our whole group, yeah. And so we have our first call. And Jen and Elka, Jen lives on Vancouver Island and Elka lives on Cortez. So it took me about 2 weeks to get the courage, but then I emailed Jen and I said, hey, can I talk to you about Cortez, about Vancouver Island? She was like, yeah. And I was like, when would be good? And she goes, I could talk to you now, or like, this afternoon or something. So we had this conversation. And, I've only been on 2 calls with her, like the intro call and another call. My first partner, which was random, I can't, Mitty, I think was our person who facilitated us. Well, I was placed with Bella. So one of the, no mistake, right?
Oh, no, wow.
Right? I mean, I can't make this stuff up.
No.
So I explained to Jen that I want to go to Vancouver Island and for 6 months, and because that's what the government will let me do is go for 6 months, and I'm trying to figure it out. And so by the end of the call, she said she had invited me to kind of land at her home and then have my exploration and come back to her home before I launch off. I was so grateful for the landing spot. So I get to Vancouver Island, and I fell in love with Jen and her husband Scott and her son Merlin, and they were like, no, stay for the whole time. You could just use this as home. We all fell in love. It was really beautiful. I adore them. They are magical people. Yeah. So from that place, I realized that my place was going to be Campbell River, which is further north, which I later found out is really close to the heart. So there's my Jupiter line. I'm right on the heart of it. Wow. Right?
Right.
And I would have become Canadian, but it's hard. I don't quite fit the profile that they love to have, so that's okay.
What's the profile? Canadian. I don't know.
But while I'm there, I had this so I guess the point I want to make about this story is that there's this great adventure that unfolds because I was in this contemplative moment, received the information, just became patient, doing what I love, engaging in Gene Keys community, do the Delta, no expectation, just, let the universe decide. And then, get the invitation.
Yeah, and being the 4-6, like getting the network, the connection, and, you got the invitation and you went for it. Yeah, wow.
And this whole adventure has unfolded, and now I live right on my Jupiter line.
Wow.
And so that is my 41 is my Jupiter. So I have that channel, the 30, 41, and you were pointing to that. And I'm like, Corrinda doesn't even know I live on my Jupiter line.
No, I just felt something there, something important. So I think now hearing your story, that is the reason why it came to me, because I feel this is the foundation of your story of Unlock Your Design, because you met Ben there as well. It's like synchronicities upon each other just by you doing what you love, being who you are, and then it all worked together and boom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So true. And so
miracles. I feel the wormholes and miracles here, right?
It gets even like more miraculous. Okay. There's two more miraculous parts
I'm
to
hanging on your lip, so.
So I'm after I left Canada, because my 6 months was up, I was like, where am I going to go? And I texted my friend who's the acupuncturist. I'm like, I got to figure out where I'm going from here. And she goes, look at the Olympic Peninsula. And within 15 minutes, I had a cabin on the Strait of Juan de Fuca. So if you're not from the US, I'll just use this as a kind of a prop. So for the US, the very top northwestern corner where Washington is, this is the very tip, and this is the top of the United States. And Vancouver Island is like right here, and this body of water is called the Strait of Juan de Fuca. So I find this cabin literally on the Strait of Juan de Fuca, and I can look out to Vancouver Island right across the strait. So I thought, okay, let me lease this for a couple months and see what it's like. So I'm in this cabin, kind of out in the middle of, 30 miles from the nearest small town. And I'm doing the Delta with my Delta sisters and doing the Gene Keys and just contemplating. And I'm getting these downloads that I need to start painting. Well, art has been a passion my whole life. When I was an academic and I spoke all over the US and all over the world, and I would go to these conferences, but the thing I would do for myself was I would go to the art museum because I adore art. It's one of my passions. I love going to museums and looking at art. So I'm sitting there in this contemplative place and adventure in, and hearing that I need to paint. And it was scary because like I've never even had an art class, you know, like I've doodled my whole life, and you know, you know, and so I'm looking on Amazon because, you know, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I find this easel with all the paint and the paintbrushes and paper. I'm like, okay, click, deliver that. So then it all arrives. I put it together, and I'm just like, I spent a few days just, you know, being with it because I don't know what to do. And then I had this moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to paint the gene keys in the delta. Oh. So, you know, my gift is soul communication. That's what what my gift is. So what I did was I just opened up the book and I put my hands on it, and I just asked to communicate with the soul of that key. And I said, would you please show me the picture you want me to paint for you? And I got an image, and
you got it. Show me.
This was my very first painting. Wow. Never had a paintbrush in my hand. I've never mixed paints before. And this was Gene Key 57, Unease, Intuition, and Clarity.
Wow, it's all in there. Oh my gosh. I love it. It's amazing. And then even with the black and white, I know I paint, and maybe there's a correlation with the 35, you know, being creative and stuff, but you know, with black and white and painting this, I know how hard it is to paint with black and white. It's amazing. Wow.
So then I keep going, and this painting right here is my 22, which is my favorite gene key. And so
it's my evolution. We're 22 sisters.
Yes, I love that. And I hadn't made the connection between the 22 and the 35 until I was contemplating for this call. And I really got that more deeply. But after I painted this one, when the 22 showed me this picture, I'll grab it so you can see what I'm talking about. So I see, you know, I do the same process. I put my hands on the 22. I ask to speak to the soul, and I ask it to show me a picture. So it shows me this picture of this tree with these great big roots going into the ground that you can see. And then it was like a porthole into Gaia, where I could see water and steam kind of coming up. And I was like, wow, that's a little over my skill.
I even see a whole world, like sort of an Atlantis kind of world in it.
So after I painted it, I realized it was the involution and the evolution. And then, but then I didn't, when I saw the painting, I saw the tree, I saw this, I saw the green come in, I saw the blue come in. And then the very last thing that crystallized the whole thing was this golden light that flew across. And as I was painting it, I understood the involution and the evolution. And, but I didn't understand the gold light. And I was showing it to a friend of mine, and she goes, oh, that's grace. That's the sacred union.
I want to share something with you before you go on, because each of my paintings, I have bought special paint because I wanted to bring in the light. And in every painting of mine, I just have a few shades or a few strokes of light coming in anywhere. Doesn't matter where I feel that the light needs to come in. And I don't know why. You know, I just paint like you. I just paint intuitively, and I never know what's going to come out. I don't think of anything. I just start with a color, and then something happens. But the last thing I do is put in the light. And now you're bringing to my awareness, like with the 22, that is graciousness. I'm having chills. Wow. I'm so feeling the importance of sharing our story right now, because now I'm listening to you. And so many light bulbs go off for me. So when we think we know it all, you know, sometimes we think we know it all, but then we have this conversation and a new epiphany appears, like, okay, okay, this is graciousness, and it expresses this way in my art, in your art.
Right, right.
Wow.
So there I am in this little cabin, and I have my Delta call. And for my share that week, I wanted to share my 22. That's what, you know, I wanted to share. So I say to my team, my group, my sisters, I say, I'd love to share what has been coming through. And they wanted to see. So I hold up the 22 and I tell them about it. And then later, Bella reaches out to me with another invitation. And she said, would you be the ambassador, or, you know, the speaker for the 22? And I was like, I'd love to do that, right? I would love to do that. Thank you for the invitation. So I did that, and I did that video with her, which was another adventure because
you don't like camera.
I don't like being on camera. I don't, you know, I've never perceived myself as a really pretty, you know, person, and I don't feel like I take great pictures. So it was a real stretch for me. Like, I wanted to share my heart, but I had to face head on this perception of self, right? And move beyond it. And that's the fearlessness. That's the adventure, right?
I feel you. I feel the relationship in that with the 35. Me being like 1.5 years ago, I did not even pick up my phone. I never answered a call. I never called anybody because I was somehow too afraid to be rejected or, you know, something like that. And now doing these videos, being on camera, being in Zoom, and, you know, it's like, yeah, the adventure brings out the courage to live a life fully lived, right? Feeling the fear,
allow us to love you,
doing it.
Right? And allow us to love you, and for the world to appreciate, you know, like, I'm so in awe of this whole adventure of the Archetype Akasha, and that you know, are courageous enough to be the cosmic librarian of the cosmic.
Yeah, I'm you know, I'm totally honest always. So I feel the invitation also to be me, and even stepping into my own fears, like new fears. And we talk about the repetition and new experiences. So each time I feel there's another layer of courageousness that pops out. So you go through a certain experience and then you come out even braver. But there's still something there, you know, and then another invitation comes from life. And then you feel this urge, this desire. Yeah, I really got to do this. But you also feel the fear, like, yeah, but am I going to fail? Am I going to do, you know, all these things, but you're still going to do it. And then you go through it and you feel like, yeah, sometimes I feel like, yeah, another leap or another threshold that I took, and I made it. I did not die. I did not fall, or maybe I did fall, but I stood up again, and feeling so strong afterwards. Like, it's like this growing process, growing through life itself by being courageous enough to step over the fears, or even how do you say that?
Hold it.
Fear. I'm challenging fear. Fear is in front of me. And it says to me, I dare you. And I say, okay. Even being with the fear. And then, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And like this Archetype Akasha, I just felt a deep, deep call inside of me. Maybe it was my 35 calling the 35. And where I used to do things just to prove myself, I now feel how it is to do something totally out of a call, out of love, out of the need that I feel of the value that the sharing brings, right? Having this conversation with you, how it makes you feel, how it even makes me feel, how we learn from each other, and being with each other and listening with each other, to each other, we can all grow.
Yes.
And then again, then I see your tree and the evolution, and then growing, like when it all works together, I see the 45 and how we can all expand if we just, you know, face our fears and open up our hearts. That's been the most difficult thing for me. I think that's also related to the 35. I don't know why, maybe it's not, but opening up your heart when you're being hurt so much in life's experience, you know, being so afraid of yeah, I shared it already with you, that you really feel your heart like, and that really physically hurts, and you don't ever want to happen that again. But life so invites you that you somehow just dare to go in that experience again, even though your heart might go like, but then daring to flower again just because you need to, or feel that you need to, for the good of the whole, maybe not even for self, right?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is almost the ultimate journey of the 35, or the ultimate adventure of the 35, is that internal journey. A long time ago, so, you know, I had my academic career, and I was clairvoyant from my earliest memories, or clairvoyance was always a part of my life. And when I was in my 20s, I would have these videos kind of pop out like apple glasses almost. These videos would just start playing. And I started seeing these videos of my family members. And I was raised Catholic. And I knew from the time, you know, when I was a little bitty girl, when I was just walking, and I would see all these beings in my grandmother's house. And I lived with my grandmother and my grandfather. And I realized from a very, very early, you know, my perception as a child was that what I saw was wrong and bad. And so my whole life, that was an internal journey. I knew things about people. I saw the energy in their bodies. I saw, you know, the whole realm of the non-physical. And then by the time I'm in my early 20s, I'm seeing these videos. And that was when I started watching the one video that was the thing that I had judgment about, and I shut my gift down, was watching one of my younger cousins, who's just the sweetest person. It's the kindest, just really precious being. We all loved her. She was like, you know, the little one in your family that everybody loves. So she had just gotten married. She moved by me, and I was going over to see her. And I had this video pop up, and I saw her whole life trajectory. And I saw that the man she married was the same energy as her father's energy, and that he was going to abuse her. It was going to be a life of abuse. And, you know, I had so much judgment about that. I couldn't hold that. Well, that's what her soul chose to grow. And, you know, I couldn't hold that. And so I was like, God, make it stop. And it was like the matrix opened up and the video just pulled out. And then I went into like 17 years of depression, which I didn't even know I was depressed, but I had separated from my soul. Right. I wasn't even able to receive myself. So that opened back up for me through an injury. Well, I always kind of like was channeling energy, but it all opened back up, and I started this deep, deep meditation process for years. And one day I was meditating, and I heard that my business name was Expanding Horizons. And I was like, oh, okay. And I wrote it down, and I eventually, that's what I made my LLC be, Expanding Horizons. But I didn't, way back then, I didn't, you know, I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But, you know, I didn't fully get it until I got the 35, right? And then I used to write a blog, and it was really just channeled messages. And so I had this one message come through, and it was about the new frontier. And the new frontier is going in. It's going in.
The evolution. Boom. Wow.
Which, you know, the 35, I mean, you can have I can go kayaking, I can go hiking, I can, you know, have the adventure to live on my Jupiter line, whatever, but it's the internal journey.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
Right.
I feel you. So in the depression as well, and I'm thinking, okay, is this because, you know, when you're contemplating and you want to relate things, what happened in my life, and which part is connected to which gene key, right? And I've experienced depression. I have experienced bulimia. I have experienced all these deep waves, and yeah, maybe the highs as well, but the low stays, right? The lows, they stay more in your memory. But then also you're discussing about having these videos and having the internal journey. And I'm like, yeah, when I was a child, I also had these very vivid, lucid dreams already as a child, being in other worlds, seeing things, knowing things, even literally feeling and smelling things in your dreams, but not being able to talk about it because, you know, you're crazy, it's not there, it's just a bad dream or whatever. But still, you know, having all these experiences and then have to hold it back, not being able to express it. And then now I can share with the people, if you don't express it, you know, your body tightens up and you get all these blockages in your body, and then you have to go through the whole journey of healing. But again, that's another adventure. Now I look at it back at like, wow, what an amazing life I had, going from the deep to now, you know, seeing the top and knowing that the top only can be reached when the moment comes when you leave this plane, because it's the adventure is until the very end, right? And it's amazing.
Right. And the whole reason I was a reader, such an avid reader, was because when I was a child, you know, there would be, like, my parents' rule was we had to be in our bedrooms by 8 o'clock. Now, if we were quiet in our rooms and the door was closed, they never came in and, you know, investigated. So when I would turn the light off in my room, that's when all the non-physical would be right there. And it was so scary. Yeah. So I developed all these like rituals where I would like turn the light off and leap to my bed and pull the things up and then reach over and put the lamp on to have just a little bit of light so that it would all stop and I wouldn't be, you know, consumed by all this that was in the room. And so I learned to read like sleep. So I would have my lamp on and I would read in the dim light of my lamp, because if the lamp was on and I was reading, so, you know, reading is became almost like sleep to me, because I would read all night. I would read through the night and I would be fine the next day. Or sometimes I would fall asleep while I was reading, but that was the only way I could actually go to sleep without being aware of everything that was non-physical that was in my space. And, you know, sometimes
you tire yourself, right?
What's that?
It was really a way to tire yourself so that you would fall asleep like in an instant. Yeah.
That's how I learned to love to read.
Yeah.
And that's why I was such an avid reader and lover of literature and going on all those adventures when I was.
Yeah, what I'm hearing now, because people can say that it's a bad thing that you were so scared, but because of that you were scared, it brought you to reading. Because I also feel with the 35, there's never, ever a bad thing with 35, even though you experience as feeling bad, it's just a feeling, which is part of the experience. And it always brings you somewhere. I feel it's all, yeah, it's, of course, it's a gate of progress. Well, yeah, so every experience, even the bad ones, they bring you somewhere, and you explain it really beautifully here. So I was afraid, I had a light, and I went reading, and because of that, I went into literature. So that's how it works for the 35, I feel. That no matter what path you choose, by that experience you recorrect and you go another path, another experience, and you correct again, and that's how you move through life.
Yeah, and when you sent me your notes about the 4130, the 41, because it's on my Jupiter line, part of what you wrote was you may experience a restlessness, a constant pressure and hunger for change that drives you toward new experience. And I really never had a restlessness because Trade-Eye's life, you know, my partner is this pure generator. He has all of this energy. And, you know, we moved a lot because of his job. And so I never really was restless, you know, in my earlier years before I finished, you know, in the first part of our marriage from 20 to, you know, late 20s. And even after that, I didn't have to have a hunger for new experiences. They were built into my life. I married this partner who
was ideal for you, for your path.
A pure generator. He was constantly, you know, and I allowed him to, you know, I never stopped him from doing his thing. I always just went and it all worked out. And then there was also a part about how important it is to enter each experience guided by your inner authority, enjoying the discovery of the new feeling that awaits you. And I was like, I got tears in my eyes because I feel like this part of my experiment and my adventure of moving to the Pacific Northwest was a perfect example of this. Yeah. Right? Because I hear the wisdom comes, it's a download, and then I just patiently wait. Yeah. And I'm not doing anything. I'm just living my life, you know, and then the information comes about the astrocartography. I make the appointment, get the information.
You listen to your feeling, it feels good, and you just go for it. You just, well.
I could have never forced meeting Bella from Sweden, Jen from Vancouver Island, you know, I could have never like forced it.
No. Who thought of that beforehand? No, it just, again, that's why I feel that you're 35 and your channel here is, they are so cooperating and making you, you know, walk your path so beautifully. It's, yeah, again, no words, because I just am amazed by your sharing. It's like a totally example, like, of course, you're the 4-6 role model, but it is really the role model of listening to your inner authority, allowing and surrendering to your activations, the energy that goes through you, sensing out the openness and feeling even the beauty of it, because sometimes people say about open sense, oh, I have an open center, and they feel like there's something horribly wrong with it, which is not, because the whole graph is perfect. Your whole chart is perfect the way it is. And we can't say it enough that you are perfect the way that you are for the people that are watching. If you see your chart, just you try to understand it, but maybe you're already living it. Sometimes I also feel for myself, then I get into 63 and I, you know, the doubt inquiry truth, and I doubt again, am I doing it right? Am I on the right path? Am I with, and then I somehow the ease comes again, maybe from my 5, you know, slowing down, or whatever channel. Sometimes I can't even relate it anymore. And I just feel maybe, or I hear a voice and it says, maybe you're already doing it, but you're just too afraid to acknowledge or to see it, that this is it and it's perfect the way it is, as long as you keep doing what you love. That has been the biggest message, and that's what you bring in here as well. Doing what you love, doing what feels right is what nourishes you, what nourishes your soul, right?
For 4-6, right?
Yeah, right.
Doing what I love, you know. And I think one of the things that I contemplate frequently is that we meet magical people in our lives, right? That they're not involved in any system. They're just living their best life in every moment.
Yeah.
And for me, I feel like, yeah, I've had my ups and downs, and certainly there are times where I was not living my highest vibration, like, and even with that as my goal, I'm not perfect at it, but I realized that before I got to Gene Keys or human design, that was already,
right.
I was already living my design. Thankfully, I was with a partner who said, pursue what you love. Like, he truly got me, because we're connected at the soul level. And through his encouragement and his capacity to generate, right, I was set up to have the opportunity to choose. I could have said to him, no, I'm not going to switch. I want to just finish in a year. But once I was invited to do what I loved, I was like, yeah, I'm going to choose that.
Yeah.
I want everybody to succeed. Success has always been, like seeing, I am as lifted up by other people's success as my own, maybe even more. I love it when people succeed.
Me too.
One of the most joyful things.
I think that is really a 4-6 thing. You want to see other people thrive, and it makes you so happy. It makes you light up. Yeah.
And maybe it was because of, living the truth of my 4-6 and being that in relationship with him and always encouraging him to do what he loved.
I'm sure of that. I'm sure.
Did that back to me, right? And so I guess the thing I want to say is like, I want to ask you, how long have you been on your journey with the systems?
Let me count back. It's been 4 years with human design and 2.5 years with Gene Keys. And I've done all the programs, so.
Yeah, mine is opposite. I found Gene Keys, and where I was in my own experiment was my soul was saying, stop getting certifications. Like, I would study, like I've had so many certifications. And for me, I get it because that was part of the adventure, right? And it was also part of the 5 learning patterns, right? Because systems are just patterns, right?
Right.
And it's also tied to the inquiry, because when you learn a system, then you can ask good questions and you can apply those to your whole world, right?
I'm always asking questions because I just love to know everything. I can't remember everything. But when I feel sometimes even in the conversations, I go in awe with myself that I always doubt myself. Do I know enough? I've learned for so many years and still not in my head. I still don't know it by head. And I look at you girls and talking, I'm like, oh, they all know it by head, and I sort of, but then when I'm in the conversation, everything just pops up. I know it. It is in my 48. It is in my well, but I need something to respond to get it out of it. And that's how, when you have these epiphanies, these moments when you just see your whole chart like working together, integrating, and then I go like, and then poof, it's gone. But I love these moments.
Well, and so I guess the point I was wanting to make, it doesn't matter if you've been studying 4 years or 7 years or 14 years, or you're just finding Corrinda and I's conversation today.
Right.
I believe that so many people are choosing, whether they know about this or not, if they're living their life and they are feeling fulfillment in areas of their life, that they are experiencing the gift of their design, of their chart, of their profile, of the frequency bands. Yeah. And I just love that.
Yeah. Don't you also love it when you, especially when you just started with Gene Keys and human design, when you do your charts of your friends and then you read the chart and their lives. So, and then you read it and you go like, oh, wow, they're already doing it, right? And they don't even know it. And that's so magical to me. It's like, it's for me, the conversation.
So magical. Yeah.
Yeah.
when the Gene Keys came to me 3 times before I went to the website and looked at it, because my soul was saying, stop doing certifications. So like it came to me, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not there. I'm like right in my own, you know, I need to be in my own world with my own soul and doing my soul work. And the 3rd time it came to me, my friend Eden said to me, just look. It's, just look. And because what does it hurt to look? And I was like, okay, there's the adventure. I was like, yeah, she's right. What does it hurt to look? So I go and I printed out my profile, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't know what any of these words are, but I saw the truth of me. I was like, this is the truth of me. This is the truth of me. And then I remember going to the website, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a little investigation here. So I look at the website and I was like, soul, show me what is essential for me. What's in the highest vibration, my highest good, what's essential. And I got 7 sacred seals, acupresence, and the Gene Key book. So immediately I bought the whole acupresence thing. I bought the 7 sacred seals and I bought the Gene Key book. And I was just working with those tools, and nobody, like just in my bed at night, I'd have my books, and I was, like it was a slow journey, because the deep, and I have done acupuncture for probably 24, 25 years, but maybe 21 with the same person, so I remember just having the acupresence sheets. I printed them out, and I would just ask, and I would go to my acupuncture appointment, and I'd have an acupresence sheet, and I'd be like, can you do this to me today? Like, do what you're going to do. Like, do your magic. I don't want to do that, but could you do this? And she's like, I do this one every time. I do this one every time, this one every time, this one every time. I'm going to add this one because it's the one I don't do, and I was like, okay. And then to meet Aleo, like how I could have never, like, my mind doesn't even work in that way. I just got the thing. And then I remember getting to Hawaii, and it was when I was living with my friend Elizabeth there, and I was checking my email, doing my work, and then this email pops in, and it's like, acupresence on Kauai. And I'm like, I'm 2 islands over. It's going to be so cheap to go there. Her workshop's only $200. I'm doing this. Like, there was the invitation, and it was a week later. Like, it happened like that. It was so quick. And that's how I met Alea. I was like, I called her and I'm like, hey, I'm going to come to your workshop. I just got the thing. Can you help me find a place to stay? And it was when Kauai had the flood, and there weren't a lot of places to stay. And so she actually found me a house. And I mean, within a week I was in Kauai with Alea,
I'm looking at your chart. If you have, because, oh no, you don't. I thought what I'm sensing and what I'm feeling here is like when you are open, like you are, and your heart is open, so not filled with fear and all the other stuff, then you're just being able to receive and to tune in, and then you can hear the invitation when it's there.
Right.
I think that's a big message for us all as well.
Yes, another thing that I love is I was talking, we were in Portals of Deconditioning, we were talking about the wild woman this week, and how the wild woman we experience through other people's ways of thinking, right? So, I feel like what you're saying, yeah, it's perfect for me as a 4/6 projector with 35 in the evolution. But if you're with us, if you're joining Corrinda and I, and you don't have 35 in your evolution, maybe you don't even have it in your chart. Maybe you're a 1/3 or a 3/5 or whatever. The wild woman teaches us how we can learn from and adventure through other people's ways of thinking. So yes, my design might not be your design, but if you're in the wild woman, you can, in the 15, when the sun is in the 15 in the neutrino stream, then understanding how other designs experience the world can definitely expand our horizons and enrich enrich our world, at least help us contemplate, well, it doesn't work like that for me. Oh, is that how it works for maybe that's why that person responded to me or said that thing to me or cared in that way, or whatever.
Yeah, I love it that you brought this up, because I discussed it in another share as well, that I feel why I'm drawn to this work, and maybe probably you too, because you mentioned it, is when you see this system and you know yourself, then you've got this whole other perspective about other people, because okay, they've got another design. And sometimes even my 63 is going like, I think that's a projector, or I think that's a manifester with a that's how when we look for the patterns, right? Mostly I'm right, but then seeing the beauty of the differentiation of, okay, before I knew this system, I could judge people for, why aren't they doing this? Why are these people responding to me this way? I only mean it the right way. Why are they rubbed the wrong way? And all this stuff. And now I'm, again, every time in awe and so full of love, because I see the beauty of maybe you not liking me. It's just mechanics. It's just, you're not meant to be in my life, right?
Oh my God.
Like that.
Holy moly, that one for me, my career as a faculty member at a college, I had colleagues, especially when I first joined. I moved to Tucson, and I get my faculty position fairly quickly after moving there. So I don't have a network. I don't know anyone. I'm the outsider, really. And I would go to these meetings, and there were people who would literally turn their chair. Like, I don't know these people. I've never said anything to them, and they can't receive me in any way, shape, or form. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I haven't even said anything to this person. It's as if my mere presence
Your penetrating aura was too much for them, maybe. Right.
Yeah. And then finding out, what a projector aura is like, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like, I my aura was penetrating them, and they didn't want, my 4-6 projector, my emotional wave. I was so happy to be there. So my happy wave was probably like a tsunami.
Right. I feel it sometimes when we are so happy, that people can be even sort of being overwhelmed by our happiness and go like, go away. They're sort of afraid of the happiness and the love that we feel, right?
Yeah. And there was one man who was hired later in my career, and I really liked him. I liked the way he thought, but he was at a different campus, and I wasn't on his hiring committee, and he never really kind of jihad with me. He just didn't, he didn't seem to connect, and he seemed to almost walk the other way. And I was fascinated by the way he thought. Like, I thought his ideas were incredible, and I really wanted to get to know him more, and he just was not having it. And so I just had to lift my paddle and go, okay, and just eventually, I don't know what changed, but I know I gave up trying. Like, there was no invitation. Like, I didn't have those words then, but there was like a door, and I was like, okay, because that's something interesting too about me, is that as a child, I learned, and maybe it was because of this. So, I'm Cajun, I'm Catholic, in South Louisiana, and back then in the 60s, at least, 50s, 60s, 70s, families often lived in communes, so they would buy property together. My grandfather had a lot of property, and he gave each one of his children a lot. So eventually, when my father was able to build his house on his lot, I think in 3rd grade, I was 8. But all my cousins lived on the street, and they had all been born in the house they lived in. They had all grown up with each other. And so they had this network, and they knew us because for many years I lived across the street, across the big street at my grandparents' house. But then when I was like 4 or 5, my parents moved away. And so then we were away, and then, you know, we would see them at my grandparents' house, but I wasn't like in their community, right? So then my father builds his house and we lived there. And I observed as a child. I mean, think I'm 8 and I see that I'm not invited. And I remember as a child, like one of the things was I didn't have a bicycle and all my cousins had a bicycle. And so that was the big thing, you know, so you're a child and everybody from, you know, 5 years old to, you know, high school, because we were a big range and there were a bunch of us, they all had bikes and I didn't have a bike. And I remember asking them, you know, can I ride with you? Can I ride on your handlebars? Can I? No. They were not having it. And I learned, you know, this does not work and it doesn't feel good. Mm. So I'd learned to just go do my own thing. You know, my mother would say, go play outside with your cousins. And my cousins didn't want to play with me. So I would just sit on the side and I would, you know, make my own play, whatever it was, you know. Yeah. And then eventually one of my cousins, she has a big heart. She has the 55 in her soul side. Eventually, you know, there I was just on the side. She would take her bike and she'd say, okay, get on the handlebars. She was the one who could receive me and she was the one who invited me. She's really been my, you know, I don't have a sister. She's been my sister. But, you know, I learned that. You know, I'm so grateful to them, right? I'm crying now because I have compassion for that 8-year-old who doesn't know her design, you know, who doesn't know she's a projector and experiences rejection. And I could have gone to bitterness, right? It would have been so easy. But I didn't. I was just like, well, that doesn't feel good. I'm not going to create more of that. That doesn't feel good. So instead, I'll create something that feels good. And when I created something that feels good, there was an opening, you know, when I just made my own way, you know, and found the joy that I could find in that moment. Then my cousin received me and invited me. She could see me, you know, and
that's how you recognize it in the future when people could receive you, right? I feel such a truth in this for the 4-6 in a way that, and then relating to the 35, that I wasn't received as a child in my family as well. So I needed to go outside and find my family, the network I want to be with, the community I want to be with. I did not have that family feeling. And now that you are mentioning it as well, I'm like, hey, I think this might be a thing for the 4-6, that it has the beginning experience of not being accepted, not being seen, and then the need, the feeling, the need to go out there to become that opportunist because it was sort of thrown out or it didn't fit in, and there was a reason for it.
Right. And so from the time I was, well, I mean, it happened even before that, now that I'm thinking of it. So my father was in the military. He was in the Navy when I was born. And my mom and my brother and I was born in my grandmother's house. I mean, in a hospital, but I mean, my grandparents' home was my first home, if you will. And after my father did his time in the Navy, finished his degree, and then he got his first job, and it was in Alabama. It was actually in Birmingham, Alabama. We lived there for 1 year in the 60s. And living with my grandparents only spoke French in their home. Wow. My great grandparents didn't speak any English. My grandparents started school speaking no English, but you know, Louisiana was the first state that had the anti-bilingualism law, like way back in the day. So my grandparents told stories of being, beat because they were not allowed to speak French at school and they didn't know how to speak English. So my grandparents, they only spoke French in their home. So French was really my first language. My grandmother cared for me. So my father gets out of the Navy and my brother and I speak French. And I mean, okay, put it into context, right? We're children. So, you know, it's the children's amount of words, language, whatever. But we go to Alabama, and I remember speaking French to my brother, and we would be outside playing, and there would be other children, and they were playing. And I remember that I would look at my brother, and I'd say things like, I have dreams about this where I'll dream in French, passez-il dit, you know, what is it they're doing? Or, you know, I'm talking to my brother in French now. I don't even know what I'm saying to him. But I remember feeling like an outsider with these other people because we didn't know what they were saying. Right. What are they talking about? And how I didn't feel like I didn't want to be at the party I wasn't invited to. And then I get, you know, then my father, we moved back to Louisiana and lived by, you know, build a house. And I don't want to be at the party I'm not invited to. I'd rather just play by myself and find my own joy. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I'm grateful for that lesson because as an adult projector, you know, it hurt when I was in my early career and I really just wanted to be with these people who also loved the thing that I loved. I thought these were my people. Yeah. You know, but I could see now that some of them were manifestors and some of them, my emotional wave was just, maybe they were splenic or maybe they had open spleens and open emotions. And my wave was just way too much for them, you know? And yeah, it's so fascinating. And I also, yeah.
I also feel that a manifestor wants to be more alone, do things more alone. So it wasn't maybe not even about you or the wave that you had, but it was just being them, just being the manifestor, right? Yeah. And now knowing that gives such a soft feeling about life, right? Where first it felt harsh and cruel sometimes, and even I think you had these moments as well that you thought, why am I here? And what am I doing wrong? I don't want to be here on earth anymore, you know, like these big, deep waves. And then getting to know yourself and seeing the beauty, seeing your chart, and then go like, wow, it was all perfect the way it was or is. That's the thing for me that really suits my heart and my presence with everything that is happening, even what is happening in the world right now, you know, seeing the cycles within cycles and us not having control over it. It is the cosmos. It's the law we have to, well, don't have to, we can only live by, right? And it is perfect the way it is.
Perfect the way it is. And then, so then this, I love this segue because part of the 30, the 30s myself know the clinging fire, the gate of feelings. The theme in your notes was the theme here is to surrender to the experiences to life, the experiences life brings us, and to learn from each rather than being limited by the expectations one brings to life.
Yeah, you did that. Wow.
Right?
That's how the channel works. It was just this stream. I'm hearing in your stories this stream, this channel doing its thing.
And, you know, I was like, oh, wow. You know, one of the things, I actually bought Trey a t-shirt once when I was in Hawaii. It says, it is what it is. We've said that like our whole, you know, 40 years together. Well, it is what it is, you know. It is what it is, you know, and now where I am now, I'm like, there's no right, there's no wrong. It simply is. Right. Someone else's choice is not right or wrong. My choice is not right or wrong. It just simply is where I am right now.
Right. Right. So beautiful that in another conversation I had this morning with my Delta Venus group, we stayed together, did a Venus after the Delta, and now we're just sisters. Like you mentioned, that's the beauty of a Delta. You become really connected because of the sharing. We also came up, you know, about the COVID stuff and the having family that are thinking about vaccinating or are being vaccinated, and us being, I don't want to use the word against, but I don't want to get vaccinated. I did my research and I choose not to. And then one sister was really crying about it, like, I am telling them what to do and they don't listen, and I see them fall and get sick and da 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 da. And then, you know, me and another sister bringing to her that all that we can do is love them for who they are. They got their design and they chose their path, and it's their choice. That's free will. It's the choice that you make for yourself, how you want to live this journey of life. And all you can do is be there for them and not judge them, because it is what it is.
Right. And, you know, I love this conversation, because what we've contemplated is that I perceive that there are people for whom taking the vaccination is not in their highest good. And they know that at the core, and they don't want to. And there are other people who they know, you know, that's what they signed up to do. That's, you know, and it's for their highest good to do that thing.
Right.
And the part that makes my heart sad is that there are people for whom maybe it's not the right thing, or it is the right thing, and they're choosing the opposite of what their soul is because of the conditioning.
That's
and
true.
That is what, that's where I really, you know, it's.
I had the same insight. I even wanted to text it you girls, like, we really need to get people aware of their conditioning. I know you've got the portals of deconditioning. It's a must for everyone. Please start just with deconditioning, because when you're deconditioned, you're already your natural self. You don't have to know anything about the system. You just have to know where to decondition, right?
Right. And then you can choose an integrity for yourself, whatever it is,
right.
And be okay that other people choose something different.
Right.
Then you know, it's, yeah. And then I also loved about the 30, which is if you enter in experiences with clarity, guided by your emotional authority, you can recognize which are valuable and have the potential to bring change. And this is how you avoid burnout and disappointment. And if you know, the burnout and disappointed by blindly doing something. And, you know, as an emotional being, my strategy is, you know, to ride the wave before I decide. And simultaneously, I've had these experiences where I entered correctly and there was so much clarity I knew in the moment. And, you know, I think that was this channel, the 4130 and my 35, you know, working together. And I'm going to just share this one experience. For most of my marriage, or the early part of my marriage, when my children were still at home, Trey worked away for a lot of that. Like, he would travel, do his job for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, and then he'd come home for a week or two, and then he was gone. And he always had this desire to live in the country. And I would say to him, I don't want to live in the country when you're not here. I'm the one who has to do all the driving. If I need milk, you know, like, it's too much. Mm-hmm. So then at the end of our son's high school, one of them was out and one of them was still a senior. We sold our house. We bought property in the country. But this is what happened. He wanted to do it, and I was still kind of on the fence about it. But I agreed. I was like, okay, well, let's go. Well, let's just go look at property and see what happens. So we had been looking at this piece of land, and we would go out, and we had gone out to it so many times that the neighborhood, it was acres. It was like 4 acres, and it was all these plots of land that were 4, 8, or 12 acres. And so we would go out to this piece of property and we would just stand there and kind of be with it. And we'd done it so many times that the neighborhood dogs would start to bring their balls to us. And we would, you know, like, throw the balls to the dog, and the neighbors would wave, you know, like we, you know, they had seen us so many times. But we couldn't pull the trigger on that lot. And so then, because we had been there so much, one of the neighbors, who happened to be a fireman, he walked down and he goes, are y'all going to ever buy the property? We were like, you know, there's just something that we can't pull the trigger on. And he said, well, you know, there's some other lots that a man owns. They're not on the market, but maybe he told you one. And we were like, oh, okay. And he said, I'll send you the number. I'll ask him. I'll send you the number. So he calls straight and gives him the number. And we've made this appointment to go look at some property that's even further in the wild, you know. Don't really quite know. We know how to get there, but you know, it's kind of even sketchy, the road, you know, but we go. And the day we're going, we're on this road, and it's a dirt road, it's hilly, it's in the middle of nowhere. And I look over at Trey and I said, we're going to buy this property. And he said, how do you know? We don't even know where the road goes. We haven't even gotten there. I was like, there's a rainbow over it.
See the signs.
And we got to the property, there was a rainbow over it. And I was like, I don't need a bigger hammer on my head. That was the clarity, you know, like I knew in my being, this was where we were meant to live. And we ended up buying that piece of property, and we lived there for longer than I've lived anywhere. Lived there almost 17 years. And it was in the middle of the nowhere. And it was actually, you know, again, I'm just saying that, you know, it was the perfect manifestation for my pure generator, because as a gift to me, because in that place in the country with my kids grown, what I was able to do was flood love out and flood love in. Because my favorite thing to do was, I had horses there, and my favorite thing to do was to finish work on Thursday. If I didn't have a meeting on Friday, I would stay home. You know, I would go to the grocery store, I'd get everything I'd need. When I came home on Thursday, I wouldn't have to leave my house until Monday, sometimes Tuesday, depending on my schedule that semester. So I would have at least Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, most weeks, sometimes Thursday, Saturday, Friday, you know, Saturday. I had a big chocolate block of time, and that allowed me to flood love in, to be with my horse in nature, and to explore, you know, like the horse that I found that came to be my horse being, Biscuit. We bought him off of the kill wagon. He was going to slaughter, and he was in really bad shape. And we, you know, he and I worked together, and, you know, eventually he became really healthy. And what I learned from riding him out in the middle of the desert was that he loved the trails, and he could find a trail. He must have been a ranch horse, because he could find, you know, we'd be on the trails in the desert, whether it was in a wash or on a mountain, it didn't matter. He could find a trail. But his favorite thing was when I would give him the rein and just let him, you know, pick his own path. And he would choose something different every time.
I'm hearing the 5 and the 35 in your horse. Oh my gosh. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my gosh, Simone, we're almost talking for 2 hours, and I feel like we can't even talk for more than 4 hours. And I want to end with this whole recording. Our whole conversation is the beauty and the gift of the 35, sharing all your experiences, sounding the boundlessness in it. You went through it, you thrived, and you survived, and you expanded, and you, oh my gosh, it's been so enriching. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's yeah.
You're welcome, and thank you for inviting me, because literally I adore the 35.
Me too.
I mean, if you know, they're all imprints in us, but I love, love, love the 35. It's one of my favorite, maybe after the 22, it's probably my favorite gene key. So thank you so much for inviting me and sharing this beautiful transmission, right, for the world.